Hello, Edward. Welcome to the show. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for taking some time out of the day. And just to give the listeners some context on who you are, can you share a little bit about your background and your story, and just give us the details.
All right. The basic details. After graduating from Yale University with a degree in chemical engineering, I, like every college grad, went out and tried to get a job in the field that I got my degree in, and I worked as an engineer for about 3.5 years. Um, then 2007, 2008, that whole situation started to occur, and the
Uh huh.
field that I was in started to take a big hit. And I had to make a decision. Did I want to give up my home and income where I was and move almost 1,000 miles away and take half the income and start over,
Mm-hmm.
or find a new field, find something else to do? And I decided that I wanted to stay in my home of Asheville, North Carolina, and was now without a job. So I was looking around and had a friend of mine who was starting an insurance agency in the area. And I promise you, insurance was never on my radar at that point in time. But I was like, well, at least I can stay here and do something and make some income. So I started working for this captive agency I worked there for about 2 years, and I learned a lot about the insurance industry. I did not see the financial rewards that I was told about whenever I first started taking a look at
Uh
it.
huh.
I would say probably my best year there was probably in the low 30s. But at the same time, that's kind of on par. That's the average income for an insurance agent in America at the time, was around, I think, $29,000 a year. So I was right there in the average group, which not a place that I enjoyed being, or one that I thought I should be. And
Yeah.
that's when I found I was recruited by Symmetry Financial Group
Okay.
in its first year of existence back in 2010. They had started in 2009. So I came on the month of their 1 year anniversary, and started just going out doing the personal production side of the insurance world, which I knew somewhat how to do from the 2 years at the captive agency.
Yeah.
And from there, started to take advantage of the Symmetry business model, and started to build my agency and share my ability to go out and help families, help clients with various types of life, supplemental health, and annuity protection. Uh, and by showing other agents, I saw that, wow, I'm generating more income. I'm building a team. I'm building an actual business. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've been with the company now for 8 years, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the ups and downs along that path. But I mean, we've gone from me just going out and personally producing, and for us, writing a typical policy, when we help one family out, that's about $1,000 of production, is the way we look at it. And I could go out and write 15, $18,000 of production in a month, which led to a very strong, very good income for me.
Uh
But I
huh.
definitely had to get out and be the salesman next month and go do it again if I wanted to see that income come back. But building the agency, I've been able to, again, through the Symmetry system, help a lot of agents learn how to do exactly what I was doing when I first started here. And now we have a team that's doing, over $3.5 million a month on average here in the first 3 months of 2019. And it's definitely generating a very strong continued income, because the way this works is the more volume you generate, you get a certain percentage of that entire volume.
Uh huh.
So it's really allowed me to build a business that's strong, that's stable, that continues to grow without me having to be the driving force behind every inch of growth that we get. So that's kind of a quick little, four
Perfect.
minute
No, I love
summation.
it. And if we can kind of touch on a few points that you mentioned through your journey, how important, from your perspective, because I believe everybody has their own perspective, but college, growing up, in the economy the way it used to be, maybe five, maybe even 10 years ago, but as little as five, because the internet didn't really start taking get so much traction 10 years ago. So I would say within that 5 to 10 year period is really when maybe the shift might have started. But the importance of college, because it was being preached and almost pounded into your heads, right? Go to
Mhm.
school, get good grades to get a good job. And but they forgot the so you can be broke the rest of your life part, because the majority of people, even back then, that you experienced, you weren't necessarily in the field that you paid all these tens of thousands of dollars to go to school for. And
Yeah.
so that's why I kind of try to tell people, it's like it's not so much schooling. Like there's a difference between schooling and education.
Correct. I
And
totally agree.
so you need to figure out what you're trying to pursue. But could you kind of touch on your thoughts on that because you did the college routine?
Yeah, well, and I would definitely not trade it for anything. I loved the school. The school that I went to, I had made a decision when I was in fourth grade that that's where I want to go to school.
So it was like a
Uh,
dream, like you were checking a bucket list.
it was definitely, but yeah, I had a fourth grade teacher that when we asked her, what's the best college in the world, she said it was Yale University, and that was just her opinion.
Uh-huh.
One of thousands of teachers across the country that have an opinion of what's the best college, but that just stuck with me, and I just made a decision then. And for me, it was more of achieving that goal, setting my mind to something. It was something my parents always taught us and
Uh-huh.
preached to us, that if you want something, you set an intention and you make action steps and you make plans and you go for it. So going to college, that was part of it. The other part of it was that ideal of getting an education that broadened my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
going to a place like Yale University, it put me from this kid from Western North Carolina who, there wasn't a lot of cultural diversity in the school I went to, in the community that I live,
Mm-hmm.
and being dropped into this cosmopolitan place where you have students from all across the world, all socioeconomic backgrounds, no matter what people may think about Yale or Ivy League. Like, I mean, you have people from the poorest of the poor to the wealthiest of the wealthiest, all in this one place on this relatively small campus. And the interactions there are just so rich and so full
Mm-hmm.
because people are looking for, like, they're there with that mindset of, I'm here to make connections, to find people that are going to help me grow and to help me do the things that I want to do in life. And that's one of the things I felt on that college campus versus the 10 others that I visited. I didn't feel the exact same thing, but even before I attended Yale University, I felt that on that campus, and that's what I wanted. That was the education I wanted. I wanted the education in a specific discipline, and I chose engineering and chemical engineering
Uh-huh.
specifically because it was something I grew up with. My dad was a chemical engineer, so
You're
that's
following the you're
I've just
following
kind of
dad's footsteps.
followed in the founding footsteps. But at the end of the day, I knew that degree, like I was getting that degree because it was something I knew, something I was used to, and something I enjoyed. I love chemistry. I love the science. I love engineering and putting stuff together and making something new. But I also knew that this would maybe be a part of my job for a little while, but long term, it wasn't going to necessarily be the end all be all of me. Because the education that I tried to get at Yale was one that was, inclusive, very liberal arts education, learning a
Uh-huh.
little bit about a lot of different things while learning about my chosen discipline, and then most importantly, learning about the people, the interactions. How do the wealthiest of the wealthiest? What do those families look like?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to those kids and ask them questions about how they grew up and what their life looked like. Talking to someone who grew up in Hong Kong or in sub-Saharan Africa or in Europe or in South America, and figuring out, like, what connects us all, what allowed you to go from where you were to wind up here in New Haven, Connecticut, when you left high school. So that education side of it, that's what I was really going for. And I
Okay.
definitely think that you can get that education in a lot of different ways. You can do it in college, but you can also do it by, going and traveling the world. I had quite a few friends who came back from spending a year or two abroad. And when they got back, they were there on campus and they had these rich experiences, just like what we were getting there while we were on campus. And they also got the added benefit of experiencing those in different parts of the world, in different cultures, with different languages. And then there's others who I've talked to and met over my years now, who they didn't go the college route. They went right into the workforce,
Mm-hmm.
but they got involved in a community. That they learned about the things that they needed to do for their job, but they didn't let that be the one thing that defined them. I think the hardest thing that people struggle with is letting what they do define who they are.
Very
And
true.
that's
So true.
where with college, like what you do in college, you think that I get out and I have an accountant's degree, or
Yeah.
I'm a doctor, or I have a law degree, or I have a teaching degree, and then that's who you are and what you are. But what an education should do is open up doors to allow you to see the variety of things that you can do and participate in and be. And then that can become who you are. You can be all those things. So for me, that the education component is just are you learning about different things that you've never experienced before, whether that's in college, in community college, in the workforce, or traveling? How are you learning about things that stretch and expand your normal paradigm, what you grew up with from,
Yeah.
when you were born
Uh-huh.
to, while you're in high school? Like, that's all, you're kind of controlled by your family, your parents' situation. Like, that's what defines and controls you to a certain degree. When you get that chance to break out after high school, now it's, what can I do to expand who I am?
Perfect. That's so on point. And kind of just looping it back around, like to almost continue the conversation, is how much of that success that you've been able to achieve now really is because of the foundation that you had growing up, from your dad kind of telling you, if you're going to do something, make sure you're working with intention. My dad always used to tell me, if you're going to do something, do it right the first time. There shouldn't be a wasted effort, and always be getting better, always be growing. And so, how much would you attribute, just being able to approach, college, because you approach it and the way you explain it is very unique, because the masses are really, it's, I need to go to school for the piece of paper because that's what's going to get me the job, and I think that it's almost a very crippling system.
Yeah.
And to me, it's, at some point it's going to collapse. That's just my perspective on it, and we don't need to get into the politics of that. But just because I think the principle behind it is incorrect, because that piece of paper is not going to get you the job you think it's going to get you. And so, but you approached it with, I'm here not only to get the piece of paper, but to network, to to gain experiences from people from literally all over the world. Like, I didn't know that about Yale. To me, it was, oh, there's Yale. You got the Yales and the Harvards and like all those preppy Ivy League. I've seen the movies.
Yeah.
You preppy punks. You're not better than us. Like, whatever. You rich punk. You know what I mean? But it's a stereotype. But how much would you attribute your approach to that from the personal development and things instilled to you from prior to that?
Yeah. Well, I would say, blessing in disguise. Like, my parents got involved in some multi-level marketing organizations back in the early 90s. And one of the things that those organizations are very good at doing
Mm-hmm.
is promoting personal growth and self-development. So, we grew up with books on the bookshelf like, Acres of Diamonds and Think and Grow Rich and, Og Mandino, and the list goes on and on. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what was on the bookshelf. And we were always encouraged, even before then, we were always encouraged to read, anything that we could that was educational. And so when those books started to show up as well, and that side of the personal development started to happen, it really allowed us as children, and I see this. I have 4 siblings, and in all of us, like, there's this drive and this push and this passion about the things that we're all doing, and every single one of us have various levels of success in
Mm-hmm.
whatever field that we've chosen. And I think it comes back to those principles that were instilled. And the one principle that, and I quote this all the time, that my dad, and I don't remember even when did he tell me this specifically? I don't know, but I remember him saying it time and time again. But he said, the principles of success are universal. And I'm sure he stole that from somebody,
Uh-huh.
some book that we were reading. But what that taught me, and that mantra that became, is that it doesn't matter what I decide to do. Like, these principles that have existed for thousands of years, like, if you're going to be successful in something good or successful in something bad, successful in any way, shape, or form you can determine what success is, the
Mm-hmm.
principles that get people there, they're universal. They're the same. I don't care where you're from, what country you're from, your sex, your creed, your religion, your color. Like, it doesn't matter. If
Yeah.
you're going to be successful, there are certain things that you're going to have to do. And so that the installation of that in my psyche from a very young age. I mean, I'm talking about, I'm 7, 8, or 9, and my dad's like, okay, pay you $30 to read this book by Napoleon Hill, right? So, I'm like reading it, half understanding anything in it. But the thing is, the more I read stuff like that, the more certain things started to stick. And then as I got older and I started to develop more, like it made a lot more sense. And so then I got to start applying those principles to stuff I was doing in elementary school, middle school, high school, and having success throughout all those years, not without challenge, but because of the principles that were outlined to me, the principles that were instilled in me. And then that just translated whenever I got both into college life and then beyond, because I know for me, I would say my academic prowess in college was far different than what it was in high school. I was, a high school student, top of the class. It wasn't valedictorian. I did some other things too. But, top of the class, great SATs, all that kind of stuff. Then I get to college and I go from being an A student to like B, C, and, you make that first D. This is the first time I've ever admitted that publicly. But like, that's when I was like, it's not, what is going to be my definition of success? Is my definition of success coming out of this place having just a degree and a job, or having the degree? Yes, that's part of it. Being successful, obviously I can't keep making D's. I got to at least be a B, C student. But I also can take advantage of this full worldly curriculum, this curriculum of people, of learning, of institutions that I can then take and apply throughout the rest of my life as well. Because we always hear the stories about how, the C students are their owners of the companies that the B students manage, that the A students run.
Absolutely. so glad I was a B and C student. Once I heard that, I was like, oh, I'm on the right track. I'm going to hire all you smart people. Find me some A students. Who's the valedictorians of every university? All right, I'm going to hire all of you.
So I had to embrace that and learn that, like, that's the other part of it too. Like having success in multiple different aspects, multiple different levels of the life that we live. So,
no, perfect. So it sounds like your dad was doing a lot of John Maxwell and Les Brown type raising you up, because those two, they always seem to touch on that, on being raised up. And it's like, no, my dad, like, I had to drag books home. And you listen to Les Brown's son speak, it's like, no, there wasn't TV. I was carrying books home from the library every day, and I had to read them. And John Maxwell, my dad would pay me to read. And so it looks like it seems to work out. So it seems like there's a track record being left with people who tell their kids to read books.
Definitely a correlation, that's for sure.
There's something tying it all together. And so obviously with your parents in network marketing, and and that's obviously led to you being a little open. Can you just, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you're in insurance. Can you debunkle the myth, or give a little explanation? And I'm sure you get asked this a lot, being so successful in it, to explain the insurance salesman stereotype. It's kind of like, just like car salesmen. Car salesmen are still car salesmen, but because of the internet, it also gave the buyer a way to put them in check. And so, people can't just go there and believe whatever the slimy greaseball says. So it's kind of with the insurance salesman. And I know that's something that you guys may probably deal with a lot, still going out there, and your team that's going out there. But just kind of for the listeners who are on the customer side, can you kind of debacle the insurance salesman stereotype a little bit, and then explain kind of what the mindset is from your side?
Gotcha. Well, I think the stereotype comes from, the 20s through probably the 60s or 70s. During that time, insurance was sold door to door. It was sold to family and friends. All the large captive agencies that exist today really found their stride during those years.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at most major insurance companies, they're like, when were you founded? Well, the late 1800s. Like everybody was 1880, 1890.
Yeah.
And then they started, and slowly, New York Life, MetLife, they started to go out and meet with the local doctors, the local lawyers, and it's door to door and making these sales. And being very persistent salespeople. When you look at some of the early books about selling life insurance, one of my favorite is one by Frank Betcher, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Sales, where he was a life insurance agent. He was a failed baseball player that became a life insurance agent in the late 20s, so through the Great Depression and on after, and he was fantastic. Like, he sold so much insurance during that particular period of time. And his biggest thing were the Dale Carnegie-esque practices of being a salesperson. Be persistent, door to door, make appointments, relentless activity. So there's just kind of this ideal of what an insurance salesperson is that they're just dogged. They're just always trying to bother you. They're, always trying to talk to you. It's like from the movie Groundhog Day, right? When, what is it? Ned Ryerson, Needle Nose Ned, I think, Bill Murray punches him out like 20 different times during the movie when he's trying to talk to him about, hey, let me talk to you about life insurance. Have you heard about that? And that's just the mentality that most people get. And for some reason, that has not fallen away. Like, that just is. Because
we're the kids of those parents that had to deal with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's pervasive. I mean, you talk to anybody today and when they first hear about, oh, you're in insurance. Oh, you're one of those people. And they've probably never been approached by an insurance agent like that. But it's like you're saying, parents, for some reason, they tell their kids about the annoying life insurance agent, or, that's one of the calls that we don't want to get, or, somebody knocking on your door. Oh, it might be a life insurance agent. So I think that's part of where that ideal or that mentality about being a life insurance agent is. And I think what we really see today with the way life insurance works, the way the different things that insurance companies do, such as critical illness, disability policies, cancer policies, whole life, index universal life, annuities. There's all these different products that these insurance carriers offer. And the majority of middle America has no idea how these products can help them out. None. Because they've been trained to not listen to or talk to an insurance agent about these things. They think it's just an added cost. They're used to being forced to pay for their car insurance, being forced to pay for their homeowner's insurance. So when they hear insurance, they think somebody trying to take money from me.
Yeah.
Not somebody trying to help protect me, help me grow my wealth, help me prevent catastrophe from happening to my family. But you go and talk to the wealthiest 5 or 10% of the country about how they feel about insurance. You talk to anybody, even middle America, when you talk to them about stocks, and you talk about, have you ever heard about options, calls, and puts? Oh, yeah, we've heard about that. What is that? It's insurance, right? Then you talk to wealthy individuals about, well, what is your family planning? What is the legacy? How are you leaving that out? Well, I have this whole life policy over here, this IUL that's going to do this. We have a couple of annuities set up to continue to endow these charities that we're going to, like, that's how they talk about how they've done their family planning.
It's just pieces to a puzzle.
It's a part. It's one part of the puzzle. Yeah, they have their stocks. They have, but like they know that that's also part of making sure that the legacy continues, that the family goes on, that taxes are paid without it eating into the principle that they've built over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their life. So they know these things, but middle America has been trained to ignore these things, and it's to their detriment. It's why that you don't see a lot of wealth preservation and passing of wealth among the middle class. Like, the middle class stays in the middle class because they're not passing wealth in a generational manner. But when you look at the again, top 5, 10%, you see them do it every single day. Every single day they're using these instruments to do that. And so what we're trying to do and shift a paradigm is to allow that middle America market to take advantage of in a way that it doesn't hurt their bottom line now. Like, they actually can start keeping more money and making more money from having the products that we offer, especially when we're talking about our IULs and, final expense policies for infinite banking. I mean, there's so many things that they could be doing and not paying any more for their basic life insurance coverage that they need anyway, right? They still need it anyway. And now they get a return on it later on in life.
Okay.
And they still have the ability to use it to continue to pass that legacy on to future generations. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do is really shift that paradigm where we can just have an open conversation. Say we're not here to push anything or sell anything to you. We're trying to help you make a game plan. And if you feel that this game plan makes sense and we've explained it well enough, then we're going to help you adopt it. We're going to help you put it into place and put it into place where it makes sense for you and your family, for your budget, and for how you guys are trying to live. So hopefully, and I think we're doing a very good job thus far, and I think we have a lot of things that are coming up soon that the company is rolling out that my agency is working on, that's going to allow us to have more of that impact on the markets that we serve and that we service.
Perfect. Thank you so much for getting into that a little bit. And I like how you phrase that is that wealth preservation is not being taught. And so, having studied, the curriculum of people, as you put it, and, being able to study at Yale and kind of being able to climb to building a large network of successful association, because association is so very key in the development of a person. And so what would you say towards people, just not even necessarily in insurance, just in life in general, on having just unrealistic expectations on, success or achieving success? Because a lot of times people, they expect to just be, excuse me, to be kind of given the world, because they did, a week's worth of work, versus like how you said when you first got started in insurance, obviously you hear insurance, it might have been like, oh, I'm going to be making all this money. And it was like, oh, I maybe made 30, And so it's like, you quickly learn that, okay, I need to adjust what my expectations are, or adjust my work habits to match my goals. Like one of them has to change for me to keep my sanity. And so what are your thoughts on just people in general, in life, whether they're entrepreneurs in business or whatever it is, and on having unrealistic expectations for themselves?
Well, I think you should have unrealistic expectations for yourself. If you ever want to do anything great or grand or huge, miraculous, like any other words you want to throw in there, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to have this baseline goal. I'm going to hit this step, and then I'll think about what the next step is, and then the next. Like you do have to have, if you want something big to happen, you have to have a big dream, a big goal that you set for yourself. Where people mess up, in my opinion, is now what supports that huge goal? What supports that thinking big mentality? Yeah. Well, one is, what is the faith that you have both in yourself and in your ability to get there, and in the system that you're going to use to get there? Like, do you have that faith that's necessary to push you and to keep you going, even in the face of me not being able to get it? And sometimes, like, you can have the faith in the wrong thing, right? Like, you can say, oh, I believe this is going to work, but like, keep buying that lottery ticket, and that doesn't mean you're going to win the lottery. Sorry, like, it's not that kind of faith, right?
Got a better chance of being struck by lightning.
Exactly. So there's that part, and then there's also like the system, right? Like, what are you building this around? If you're going to get there, are you following other people who have either gotten there before or are on their way to the place that you're trying to go, right? If I wanted to build a electric car company, do you know who I should probably try to follow and figure out everything that he's doing? Sir, and then Elon, where I see him maybe going wrong, maybe not do those things, right? Yeah. So like Elon Musk would be a good example of that, and if I can find a way to just follow and emulate. So his system was, okay, let me build this thing called PayPal first and make a whole bunch of money, right? And so I need to, I got to do it the same way. There are a few people in this world that go and invent something brand new all on their own. Like it happens, right? But like you're talking about, the lightning strikes. Those are lightning strikes. The people just one off, they go and just, But the greatest of people, even people, when you look at folks like a Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett,
Yeah.
you look at the best politicians that we have, the greatest public servants that we have currently, like most of them, I would say 95% of them are following in paths and footsteps that have been laid out before them,
Hmm.
right? Like even though those people who you're like, man, they innovated and they created a new industry. Yeah, they did, but they did it surrounded by and influenced by people who had come right before them. You just don't know about the people who came right before them,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm going to get this incredibly unrealistic dream to happen, I need to make sure that I'm following a path, a system, a plan, whatever you want to term it, that has shown that it has worked before. So, right. So I have to have the faith, I have to have the plan, and then the third part, in my opinion, is that extraordinary effort. Right. I can have the
Yeah.
plan and I can have faith, but like I can look back to my early days here at Symmetry Financial Group, and I can remember my girlfriend at the time, now wife, saying, "Hey, can you take a break from that?" And like at the time, I couldn't. Right? Like at the time, I was like, no, this isn't time for me to take a break. Thank God I didn't have my children at that point in time. Like I was blessed that I got to spend the first 4 years here at Symmetry, actually first 5 years really. 9 months of that he was in the womb before he came, right? So the first 5 years here at Symmetry where
Yeah.
I didn't have, and I'm not saying that if you have kids you can't have success or you can, but like I got to put as much focus as I needed to on what I was doing here. And I had a partner in my wife who supported that, right?
Mhm.
Like she knew what I was doing. She knew why I was working so hard, and she supported me in doing that. So whatever your life situation is, make sure that the people around you are going to support the extraordinary effort that you're going to have to put in to make any unrealistic or amazing or dream goal come to fruition. But if those three things aren't working in concert together, if one of those three things are off, and there are other, I would say, micro things that you probably need to add to shore those
Yeah.
three major
In a
things
macro
up.
sense,
Yeah, but
those
in a
three are the
definitely
base.
in that macro sense, you have to have those three things. If one of those three things are missing, you need to figure out another unrealistic goal that can have those
You
three
need
things that will support it.
Perfect. That's such a good answer. And you mentioned, your wife. You had a great support system with your wife, because she knew why you were doing it. And so, how important is having a why? Can you explain what a why is? I know Simon Sinek has a really good talk on, it all starts with a why, and so that would be a good listen. But for you, having lived through it, having and did the grind and achieved success, that you're just so humble about. I'm waiting for it to slip up here while you're talking, so people can be like, "Whoa, wait, what? Say that again?" Because I think a lot of ears might open up and perk up once they heard the amount of dollars that get deposited into your account. Not even monthly, but probably daily. But really talk on the importance of a why, and what it really means to have one.
Well, and I don't know, just because of the things I've read over the years, I don't know if this is something I've gotten from somebody else or a book that I've read. I'm not exactly sure. So if it is out there already, then I give them all the credit. If it's not, then you know where you heard it first. Um, for me, the why is equivalent to the destination. The why is a destination in any journey that you go on, in any venture that you start. Like the why is what I'm trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
When the U.S. space program said we want to get to the moon, like that was the why. Why are we working all day? Why are we spending millions and billions of dollars in the late 60s, in the 50s and 60s?
Yeah.
What are we trying to do? We're trying to go to the moon. Everything that we're trying to go to the moon. Well, what about exploring Mars? No, we're trying to go to the moon. Like that was the why, and it was, whether you believe it or not, it was achieved, right? Like the missions happened. That's why the U.S. has a space program this day, right? Because we didn't want the Russians to get there first. We want to be the first ones there, so we pushed forward. Any journey, like let's take it down to a smaller level. If you want to go to San Francisco and you
Yeah.
start in New York, Like you get on your map out, you Google it, and you plot one point to another, and you start driving in a direction. Like that's your why is, well, I'm going to San Francisco, so I'm getting in the car, I'm getting motion, I'm getting activity. Things are happening, things are changing. So your why, that's where you're trying to go. That's what you're aiming at. If you don't have a clear and consistent why, you're going to start down one path and then get halfway down that path and be like, well, why am I going this way? I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's go this way. And then you start going down another path and then another. And next thing you know, you're just kind of like aimlessly wandering through life.
You're gonna be a pinball.
Yeah. And so like the why is what helps to focus you. It helps to guide you. It keeps you going. It helps you correct when you're off course. It chastises you. It rewards you. Like your why is what drives us all.
Mm-hmm.
And some people know their why, and so that they have this intentional life and their life turns out the way they want. And some people don't know what their why is, and therefore their life is just these series of half starts, half steps, mistakes, and blunders. And they're wondering, well, why am I depressed? Why am I sad? Why am I lonely?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because you don't have a why. You don't have anything that's putting you in a clear direction and has you moving after or going towards something. And I don't care if it's the smallest of things. Maybe your why is a 6-month why, but like we all should have something that we're trying to do. Otherwise, well, what's the point?
So if you're always asking why, then it's
usually because
you don't have a why.
Exactly.
That's such a good correlate. I love that. So if you're that's a meme right there. I'm gonna snapshot your picture, and it's gonna be a serious face. We're gonna do a serious face shot or something on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll be like, I need a serious face shot, and then I'm gonna put a meme. If you're always asking why, it's because you don't have one.
There you go.
You heard it first. There you go. And then I know we're running short on time, so really quickly, kind of to wrap it up, just on these amazing principles that you're sharing with us, can you talk about the importance of timing and, you know, using personal development to make sure you're ready for it? Because I think a lot of good opportunities, a lot of people that are complaining about their lives, so many good opportunities may have presented themselves, whether it was direct sales, whether it was a position at a job or a work promotion or the chance to start their own business or whatever it is. I think a lot of people missed out on a lot of opportunities because they just weren't aware of it due to the lack of personal development. And so they didn't even realize that time had come and gone. And so the importance of timing and how it correlates to, you know, making sure you're still growing personally.
I will say this. The one thing you can never time is the right time.
Explain.
What I mean by that is like you definitely don't know when that right thing, that great opportunity is going to present yourself. And so the reason personal development, in my opinion, is so important is the bigger I grow myself, the more I can handle, the more I can hold, the more I can grasp onto. So when I'm in one of those right moments or those right times, I have something that will, you know, make that light bulb turn on and say, aha, here's what you've been studying for. Here's what you've been preparing for, presenting itself. Now go grasp it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so the more I continue to grow myself, and I definitely know, you know, when I've had the chance and the wonderful opportunity to meet John Maxwell on a couple of occasions, and you know, obviously having speaking to my life through books and video and some trainings, but even in a one-on-one, being able to hear him talk about how, like at his age, I think at the time he was 70 years old, or maybe a little bit younger than that, but like he's still working on how can he develop himself. What can he learn from? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking like this man who's been in this field for 30 plus years, what other books is he reading now? You know, like, where else is he getting more? But he's still seeking it. He's still searching for it. And the reason he's doing that is because he knows that he is always going to be limited by how big he is. Yep. And he wants to live an unlimited life. And if any of us want that same kind of aspect to our life, that ability to live in an unlimited fashion, we have to continue to grow ourselves so that when the right time presents itself, it doesn't go over our heads. Like, I'm sure you've been talking to somebody and you
Mm-hmm.
said something that either their education or their upbringing or whatever, like they just totally missed your joke or what you were saying because they never, it's not their fault. Like, they were never taught that, right?
Yeah.
Like if I said, oh, look at those penny wallies flying around over there,
What's a
and you
penny
didn't grow
wally?
up. Exactly. What's the penny wally? Like, you're totally gonna miss the penny wallies. And then if I say, well, those are fireflies. Okay, now you've learned something
Right.
new.
Oh,
And
okay.
those fire, now you can appreciate them, you can see them, you can. But if you don't know the terminology that I'm using, if
Yeah.
you don't know the way I'm presenting something or saying something, and that's what personal development does, is it grows different ways for you to learn. Not just, and we're not just talking about like self-help personal development. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about like learn a language, right? Learn about a different culture. Learn about different areas of the United States. If you're going to have a team that crosses the entire U.S., you should probably know where Portland, Oregon is and where Portland, Maine is, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should be able to talk with some familiarity with somebody who's from Idaho and know, wow, Boise is right here, and what else is in Idaho? Oh, okay, and be able to have those conversations. Like,
Yeah.
that's when we're talking about growing yourselves. It's not just reading the next self-help book. It's about learning things that mean something to other people's life, so that you can then be impactful in their life because they'll be able to connect with you
It makes you
if you
more
open up
relevant.
those connections.
So true. That, I mean, couldn't be explained any better than that. And I want to give just a real quick second for you to kind of talk about, what you're working on with insurance, where people can find you, a little bit of the product, like your website, and direct them there. If you want to take a minute just to kind of do a little advertise with every guest, I give them like a little minute at the end to give a quick advertisement of like, here's your pitch, go.
Well, I would just say that the easiest way to reach us is you can definitely check us out at pritchettagency.com, Pritchett agency.com. There you'll find out a lot about who we are, what we do, our partnership with Symmetry Financial Group. You can learn about things from a client perspective, or if you're looking for a new career, you can find out ways to come join us. In addition to that, we're, of course, on good old Facebook and Twitter. I try to, go on there and share some of the good things that are happening and things that I'm thinking about through both of those mediums right now. So just search as Pritchett Agency on Facebook or Pritchett Agency SFG on Twitter. Other than that, yeah, just feel free to reach out in any of those ways. And especially if you're working with us here at Symmetry Financial Group, or you're a client that's looking for the kind of insurance agents that will help you learn more about how you can do more for your family now and in the future, definitely reach out to us, and we will definitely be the kind of agents and the people who will help you and your family do that. Or if you're looking at it from a career standpoint, help you go out and help families do that same thing.
Perfect. Alrighty, sir. I appreciate your time. Thank you for, I guess not so early for you, but thanks for joining me this morning on the call. I know you're busy, and hopefully one of these days I'll meet you out and about on your travels.
Sounds good, Jeff. I
Alrighty, take
appreciate
care.
it, man.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Hey guys, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Blast Talks. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends too, because we got a lot more coming for you, and I know you're going to love it.